Hi, welcome to our online seminar. My name is Stephen Wanswich. I'm the Help Desk Manager here at Abraxas Energy. This is my contact information in case you need to get in touch with me after this presentation. We'll be posting this presentation online for your viewing, so there's no need to copy down any contact information at this point. First off, before we get started, I just wanted to go over who we are, so you know who's giving this presentation. Abraxas Energy Consulting was established in 2001 and has provided quality software such as Metrics and Market Manager, and also energy services throughout the world. Most of our clients are in the US and Canada, but we do have a few in Europe, Asia, Australia, etc. We do perform building energy audits on commercial facilities. We also provide Metrics and Market Manager software to our customers. We perform database setups and perform utility bill analysis with Metrics, and our clients receive expert training in Metrics. We do regional trainings, and we also do these online seminars. And we can also, if needed, if Metrics isn't exactly what you're looking for, you need an additional boost, we do create custom energy related software that can be used as an add-on to Metrics. So our report that our presentation today, which you will be viewing, is reports your managers and customers want to see. The 5 main points that we're going to go over today are customizing formatting in Excel and ReportMaker, how to avoid garbage in and garbage out, so that's how to make your reports look good and make sure that the data is correct. We're going to go over performance reports for those that want just one number, the summary of how the building's doing. We have summary reports that'll give all the details. We'll also show you how to use the online reporting tool that we have. I want to emphasize that this presentation that we're going to be giving today is part of a 2-part series. So coming up in July, you'll be able to see the second part of our presentation and learn even more about how to use ReportMaker. So before we get started and jump into ReportMaker, I just wanted to go over some of the assumptions that we're making as for what your customers actually want to see. The first thing that we anticipate and we make sure that our reports have is clean formatting, so it's easy to read and everything looks correct and everything's easy to understand. Professional looking reports, so you've got that custom header in there, they know it's from your company. Personalized reports, so that they're seeing the data that they want to see, and easy to understand reports that really cater to the information that each client wants to see, whether it's just overall savings, it's every detail, whether it's a comparison of the different buildings that are at a site or in a school district. So these are some of the points that we're going to show you how to do in ReportMaker. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over making those colors look nice. Maybe there's a certain color coordination that you want for your buildings, or just being able to modify the colors in ReportMaker. The next thing we'll go over is the reference here, and I'll go over what exactly I'm referring to when I say reference here. The next thing we'll do is the custom page layout, so how to get your company's logo into every report when you run it in ReportMaker, so you don't have to load it into the header and footer each time you have a report. And after that, we'll go over some of the graph settings that you have in ReportMaker. So first off, once you get to the graph color settings, this is what the screen will look like. You can see you can change the colors that are displayed for the years. That's the year palette. The item palette, so this is typically if you're comparing different sites. The first site that's in order, so if it's in alphabetical order, it'll be that first site, this will be the color. The second site, this will be the color. You're just comparing different scenarios. This one's pretty self-explanatory. And finally, if you're comparing different fuel types, these are the colors that you'll see. I'm going to go ahead and shift over to ReportMaker so we can take a look at these and just give you a quick overview of how to change these settings. So say for 2009 I don't like this color, so I'm going to go ahead and I want a bright red color. I want something that's going to show up easily on my report. I can go ahead and use this fill button up here. I'm going to change it for 2010 now, and I want a blue for 2010. And I'm going to use this fill in the toolbar. I'm going to click it, and then the colors are set. To save these changes so that they actually show up in your report, you can go ahead and click the Save button over here, and it'll give you the current scheme is saved. And so now these colors are saved into ReportMaker for when you run future reports. You can change all the colors that you need. This black color, in case you were to run a report with 21 buildings or sites and you didn't want it as black, you can change that color also. So after adjusting graph colors in ReportMaker, the next thing is getting that professional looking logo into your report. So back into ReportMaker, into these ReportMaker settings that we have here, and we're looking for the fourth tab over, and that is page setup. We're going to be using the advanced page setup, so if it's selected on use simple page setup, you want to go ahead and select use advanced page setup. Click the setup button. The next screen that pops up should look very familiar to you. It's just the print preview screen that you get in Excel. Now I'm going to click the page setup tab. I'm going to go over to this header and footer option. I'm going to click header footer, and I'm going to put my picture in the center. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is how to adjust the reference here in ReportMaker. And when I say reference here, here's an example from a report of what that looks like. You can see this October month is the first month that this 12-month reporting period starts in. So this reporting period goes from October to September. You may be working for a government, they may be one of your clients, and they may start with a fiscal year that starts in July and goes from July to June. So to cater to those clients, you're going to want to adjust this reference here to start in July, or in this case, in October. So there's two places that this can be changed, and I'll discuss the differences in a second. The first is the metrics project. The second is in ReportMaker, so you can change it either in metrics or ReportMaker. In metrics, this is a permanent change, so each time you load the project into ReportMaker, you will see that if you've set it to start in July, it will always load and run the report in July. After you load it into ReportMaker, there's a reload data button that gives you the option to load the data, and you can actually change that starting month. So if you, instead of July, maybe for Energy Star purposes, they need the last 12 months to upload it into Energy Star, and so they want to see a report that goes for the 12 months January to December or June to May or something along those lines. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into metrics real quick to show you where that setting is. So if I go to the project and the tree structure of my project, you can see here on the third option down there's something called reference here. That's what we're looking for. The way this works in metrics is that it will give you the end month. So if you want your 12-month period to start in October, you need to select September as your end month. The same goes if you want to start your 12-month period in July, you would select June. I'm happy with the way my project's set up now. I want to start in October, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it at September, but this is where the option would be. If I wanted it to start in July, I'd click June. Now for the other place that you can change this setting is in ReportMaker after we've loaded data. So I'm going to go ahead and load data real quick like here. So I'm loading my data, and then where that load data screen is, that's where the button is going to be. In a second, once it finishes loading, we'll give it a second. So here, the starting month right now is October, the 10th month. If we wanted it to be January, we could click OK, and we could click OK, and it would set it the starting month to January. I'm going to leave it as the starting month as October, because that's what I want. One of the differences you'll see in metrics, it asks you what the end month is, and in ReportMaker it's asking you for the starting month. So it's just something to be aware of, that you have to, there's a difference between metrics and ReportMaker. So I click OK, and we've successfully set the option in both ReportMaker and metrics. Now, the next option that I want to talk about are some of these graph options that you see here. I've got a report, the standard compare scenarios report from metrics, so we can see some of these graph options. We'll get to this window. You may have seen it when running some reports. It shows up in quite a few of those reports that have graphs, but I wanted to show you what these options actually mean. So this first one here, under the table options, so that's applying to the tables that we have here. You can first off show the data cumulatively. So what that means is that this January is going to be just like the January option, but this February month is going to show both January and February summed together. In this case, it's not showing it cumulatively, it's showing how much was spent each month. But to get an idea, for the February, if it was shown cumulatively, so it would show the sum of January and February, so that would be around 120,000. For March, it would show the 3 months, January, February, and March summed up, so you're looking at around 180,000. And so on and so forth, all the way through. So you wouldn't have this total column here either, because that would match what would be in December. That would be the total for the last 12 months. The option to total each row and table is pretty self-explanatory, but just to show you, it's going to give you this total here at the end of the table for each year. On some reports, if you're comparing years and you want to see the years summed up for the total energy usage for January for the last 5 years, you can put a total for each column in the table. For the chart, there's 3 different options. The first one, of course, no chart. That's self-explanatory. You won't get a chart. The next option, to embed the chart on the table. And this one's only available sometimes when you run a report. And I'll point it out again when we actually get into running reports. But the option, when you select the option 1 line item, you will be able to embed the chart on the table. If you select the option for many line items, you will not have this option. It will be grayed out. So I just want to emphasize that in case you're looking for this option when you run a report and see it's not there. The third option is for the chart and table to be separate. And that option, instead of it looking like this, where the chart is embedded on the same spreadsheet as the data is, you would have the data in another Excel tab in the same workbook. The next option for the graph, you can have a line chart or a bar chart. The line chart is going to show up as lines, so you can see this is a line chart here. The baseline and actual are showing up as lines. If we were to select bar chart, for each month you would see, for the baseline and the actual, you would see a bar for each one. The grid lines, you can see there's the X and Y grid lines, the X and the Y. For the display B-A as bars, that's how it is in this one. So we have a line chart with the B-A as bars. You could also see that if you uncheck this box, you would see it as a line down here following the tops of the baseline minus actual. If we were to run a bar chart and we wanted to see everything as bars, so we'd see the baseline, the actual, and the baseline minus actual as bars. What you would do to do that is you would select bar chart. This text, instead of saying display B minus A as lines, it will say, or display B minus A as bars, it would say display B minus A as lines when you switch over to bar chart. And so you could unselect that option if you wanted all three, the baseline, the actual, and the baseline minus actual, to be bars. Okay, now we're going to be talking about the garbage in, garbage out in ReportMaker. And what I mean by garbage in, garbage out is that if your project data is garbage, essentially, what you're going to get out isn't going to look very good either. So here are some of the common things that we see on tech support, and we recommend that you look for in your projects in case you have anything that doesn't look quite right. The first thing is that the bill cutoff dates are not set. And just as an overview, a bill cutoff date is something that assigns a bill to a month. So if it goes from January 15th to February 15th, it says, okay, that is a January bill. And so if those aren't set properly, you could see something that looks like this in this report here. So in this report, you can see that it jumps from February to April, so it looks like you're missing a month of data. And the actual culprit in this case is that the bill cutoff dates made it so that this bill that went from in January and February, and then the next bill just went to the other side of that cutoff date, and so you have a gap in the cutoff date. It looks like a missing bill, but I want to emphasize that it's not. Now we're going to talk about the missing bills. And so this is what a missing bill will actually look like. So a missing bill, you're going to see this month that's missing, just like the bill cutoff date. And then the next month is going to have an extra baseline that's almost twice of what the baseline should be. The reason for that, if I go ahead and open the project, let me take a look at one of these meters. So if I look at this June bill right here, and I were to delete this June bill, so this July bill is missing a month of data. The way metrics actually calculates the baseline is based on our tuning equation, which is based on the number of days. I switch back to the register. The way metrics calculates the number of days is it takes this date, so July 25th, that's when our bill ends, and looks at the previous one and says, okay, this bill has been going since May 29th, so that's almost 60 days of data. And so that's why it's going to effectively double the baseline. It'll be a little bit less depending on what other variables are involved. However, you will see a big increase in baseline. It'll look like all of a sudden from 12% energy usage you will be saving 50%. So there's a huge savings that would be involved. The next garbage in point that I want to talk about is other missing data, and I'm going to emphasize weather data, but you may see something like variable data that's missing. So back into the garbage in reports. This first example here was when the last month of data was missing. And you can see that the baseline really drops off. So if you look at the months going and your savings, okay, we have a negative savings of 11% and 4%, and then all of a sudden it drops off to negative 60%. And that's one of those freak out moments where, oh no. But not to worry. In this project, it's simply missing weather, and before you send this to a customer, you want to make sure that weather that's missing gets imported in. Another example that you'll see of missing weather is when months in the middle are missing. So if I look at this, you can see that it's kind of shifted over. This baseline drops off before this actual baseline over here did, and that's because I subtracted out 2 months of weather data in here. You can see it a little bit better in the metrics screenshot. Here you can see it drops down. I deleted out some weather here, and it rises up more quickly than it should. The reason for that, if we go into metrics and we look at this weather here, if I were to delete this month, so now we have a missing month of data. Metrics only keeps track of the first month of data. So for this January, it knows that the first bill is a January bill. It looks at the next one and says, obviously everything is in order. Okay, this bill here, even though it says March, metrics says, I know that you know that it goes January, February, March, April. Those are the months of the year. So this, even though it says March, metrics sees it as a February bill because it's going in order. This one will actually show up with a QC error, so it wants to warn you and make sure that you know that you are missing a month of data, and that needs to get back into your metrics. Some other things that are going to cause reports to not be as accurate as they could be and to not look as good as they could be are estimated read dates. If you have to estimate those read dates, your data isn't going to be as accurate as it could be. So try and find the read dates if they're available. Sometimes they just aren't. If you have a poor weather normalization, of course, if you're actually using the electricity to cool the building, but it's showing a trend for heating degree days, even though that electricity isn't used for heating, you want to make sure that that's not the case, because it will affect your baseline in the future. Another instance, of course, if you use the wrong weather data. So for example, if you use Los Angeles weather data instead of New York City, there's definitely a difference in the winter weather between those two cities. You'd see a huge difference in the number of heating degree days in the winter, and because of that you'd see a very large difference in the baseline if it were based on heating degree days. Finally, if you're using rates and metrics to calculate the dollar amounts, you want to make sure those rates are accurate. So if your actual rate turns out to be about 12 cents per kilowatt hour and your rate is actually charging 20 cents per kilowatt hour, you're going to see a large difference between the baseline kilowatt hours and the actual kilowatt hours. Okay, we have a quick question that we're going to go through to check your understanding. So seeing this graph that we have on the screen, you can see that there's no bill in April and May. The baseline minus actual jumps up. Seeing that, what is wrong with the graph in April and May of 2009? I'll give you a second to think about it, read over the answers. Okay, if you need more time, you should go ahead and pause this video. But for the rest of you, now that you have an answer, the answer is, drum roll, A, missing bills. And the reason that's the answer is because if we look at this May bill, the baseline is way above the actual that we have. And because of that, it means that we have an inflated baseline due to a missing bill. It could also be an erroneous bill and a missing cutoff dates, but the most likely answer here is missing bills. So now we're almost ready to get into ReportMaker. I'm going to talk about the Create Reports menu that we have. In ReportMaker, when you're getting started, we recommend that you use the Create Reports option. Once you click on the Create Reports menu button, you will see these menu options here, it's going to ask you what you want to do. So if you're looking to track usage or costs, there's a whole bunch of reports for that. If you're looking to understand or describe the baseline, it's another thing that you can do. And so I recommend that you go through this the first time through, figure out what you're looking to do, what kind of report you're looking to show, and you can use that as a guideline. Once you've selected the option that you want to do, you can go through and when you click on each report, it's selected over the first report here under this drop-down menu, the Compare Years report, and you can click through and actually click on these links and they'll pop up a different image. This is the first sample, but there are 4 samples in this case, and so you'll be able to see different samples of what the report actually looks like. It's very helpful the first time through, first few times through when you're looking for a report and you're not quite sure if that's the right report for you. So now we're going to jump into a couple different kinds of reports. The first one that we're going to talk about is performance reports. So this type of report, a performance report, is for the customer that just needs that one magical number. There's a few different options that they may be looking for. One of them is just current versus historical, and they're looking to see the difference between the year that you're in and the previous year. There's also the current versus the metrics baseline, so that's going to actually show you your savings, how much energy you've saved or reduced your costs. Another type of report is a comparison to peers, so they want to know who the best performer is among many different buildings in a school district or different schools in a school district, and that'll help look for potential energy savings opportunities. Before we jump into ReportMaker, I just wanted to emphasize the difference between a year-over-year report and a normalized report. So when I talked about the current versus historical, that is a year-over-year report, and the current versus baseline is a weather normalized report. So the year-over-year is not weather normalized, and it will show a difference between years. It's not going to show savings, it's going to show a difference. And the report that you want for that in ReportMaker is the time across years report. If you're looking to see savings, the report that you want is a weather normalized report. So that's going to take into account the changes in weather that you have. For that report, you want a time across scenarios. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into ReportMaker. And we'll show you some of these reports. You've already loaded the data into ReportMaker, so I'm going to use this Create Reports button. And you can see this is the drop-down menu with the different options that we have. I'm going to track my usage and costs. I'm looking to show my current data versus my historical data, so I want this Compare Years report. You can see here some of the samples of what this report could look like depending on the options that are selected. I'm going to compare the actual data. That's what I want. In this report by, you can report on different levels. So if you're looking to see what the entire project, so if you have an entire school district and that's your project, and you're looking to compare between 2 years how much energy was consumed last year and how much energy was consumed this year, you can report on the project level. If you're looking for more detailed information, maybe by school or even by meter, you can run it on the meter level. Each one of these, when you select on the meter level or the area level, each area or each meter will have its own separate tab in Excel, so just be aware of that. I'm going to go ahead and change it to project level now, because I just want to show that one magic number to my manager to show what the difference was between this year and last year. Use bill cut updates monthly. I mentioned this earlier about one line item and many line items. Remember that one line item will give us the option to show that embedded chart on the same page, and I really like that chart. It shows everything nicely. It's all on one page. So if you can use one line item, I recommend doing that. So now we're going to select our line items. We could either show it based on energy, which would be under quantity, or cost. I'm going to do energy this time. Since I'm looking at the entire site and I want a summation of natural gas, electricity, and fuel oil, I'm going to use equivalent kBTU. It's going to give me a sum of the total energy usage for the site. I'm going to select 2 years, 2008 and 2009. And these are the options that we went through earlier. You can see that we have the line chart, the bar chart. We still have this embed chart option because we selected one line item. And I like these options, so I went ahead and clicked OK. The option to memorize a report, we won't be covering this in this online seminar. We have an online seminar coming up in July that we will be covering memorized reports, report groups. So since this is the first part of a two-part series on ReportMaker, I just wanted to let you know that we will be covering memorized reports in our next seminar in July. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this report. We can see these colors that we selected, the red and the blue from earlier, are in our report. And you can see we get a very nice comparison graphically. For 2009, you can see that the energy usage is very close to what it was for 2008. And if we look down here, for someone who wants to see the numerical difference, they can see, okay, we used a little over 1 million kBTU more in 2009 than we did in 2008. And so this is showing the difference. I'm emphasizing again that it's not the savings, it is the difference. The next report that we're going to show is the normalized report. So this is going to show us the savings. It's going to give us that one magic number that we're looking for. And in this case, I'm going to use the example that my manager wants to know how much money we actually saved from these energy management projects. So if I want to do that, I'm going to be looking at the entire project level. I'm going to be looking at all the areas, since we want the total savings that we're seeing. We're going to use the same options, almost, except for instead of just showing the actual like we did last time, we're going to compare two scenarios, the baseline and the actual. Still going to use one line item. I'm comparing based on cost. So total dollars. Okay. I'm going to change my reporting period since our year starts in in October. I'm going to start on October 1st. Click OK, and I'll let this report run. So within a matter of minutes, we have our report to show our total savings. We have a graph to go along with it. So now we can see this report. We can show the baseline and actual for the entire project. Notice that when we were looking for this, comparing 2008 and 2009, it looked like we were using more energy, but when we look at the actual savings report, we can clearly see that we're actually saving dollars for the project. So that's another emphasis of what the difference is between the year-over-year and the normalized reports. It doesn't always mean that you'll show savings. However, in this case, you are showing savings. One of my favorite reports that we're going to cover next is the comparison to the peers. And for that report, we're going to want a benchmarking report. So what do you want to do? Benchmark, compare sites. And this is going to show us how our sites are comparing to each other. One of the big differences between the benchmarking report and the last report we showed, the track usage or costs, is that we're only going to be able to report on one period. So in our last report, we showed 12 months of data, and in this report it's only going to show that 12-month period as one. Last time we had those 12 months each month separated. We're only going to have the 12 months combined. So we're going to report on the actual data, we're going to report on the site level, and we're going to compare those sites to each other. I'm just going to run the first 5 or 6 reports, or 5 or 6, 7 areas, and run them all. I'm going to run a ratio, and the reason for that is if I'm looking to compare buildings that are of different size, they would use more energy based on their size. So I'm going to normalize it for energy usage per square foot. I'm going to go ahead and find it, equivalent kBTU. And I'll go ahead and click OK. If these sites were in the same area and they were on the same rate, we could also use dollars per square foot. But since these sites are spread out all over the country, we need to benchmark based on the energy per square foot. So we can see we have a nice graph here that shows that the Brunswick, Georgia site is our biggest energy user, and we can see that the Denver, Colorado site is our, on a kBTU per square foot basis, is our lowest energy consumer. And so that's probably a site that Abraxas would have energy audited. If I look in this next page, I can see a breakdown of the actual energy per square foot, and it gives a ranking. There were a whole bunch of options before that let me sort the data as I wanted. And so that wraps up our equivalent kBTU per square foot report and our performance reports. Okay. Now that we've gone over some of the performance reports, you're going to have another type of customer, client, or manager that's going to want to see a summary report. And a summary report is a report for someone who wants to see everything all at once and on a single report. So they're looking for every kind of detail that there is out there, and they want to be able to see how the answer came about. And so we have a few options for you. The meter detail report, the time across scenarios report, which we ran earlier with one line item. Now we're going to run it with many line items. There's the multi-level breakdown, and there's another option is the custom report. So if you still don't see the option that you're looking for in ReportMaker after this presentation, I would give us a call just to make sure that there isn't another report that we haven't mentioned. But one of the options, we can do a custom report, and we can get the report in any format that you're looking for. And if you're interested, feel free to get in contact with us. I'm going to go ahead and transition back over to ReportMaker. The first report that I'm going to go over is the meter detail report. So I'm still tracking usage or costs, but I'm showing every detail. This report is really very simple to run. It's going to show me it's going to show me the data on the meter level. Even if I run it on the area level, it's going to break it out by each meter still, but you can select based, okay, I only want to see the areas for Allentown, Pennsylvania, instead of looking at just 1 meter and having to go through and select all those meters. So I'm just going to run it for 1 meter just to show what the report looks like. So this is the only screen that will show up that you have to answer questions for after that last one. It's gonna show you the base period that you tune to. It's gonna show you that normalized, or the data that you normalized for. It's also going to show you a 12-month reporting period, so you can select what 12 months you want. I'm going to go ahead and use the same period that I've been using, that ending in September of 2009. And it's going to show you base year, baseline, and the actual or some actual. We'll run actual at this point. And those are all the options that we have to select. We're going to get a lot of detail in this report. It's going to show all the detail for this meter. And so we can see this is our base year, our reference year. So for our reference year, it's going to break it down by the month use. So that's the kilowatt hours that are used for each month. It's also going to show it cumulatively. So this is the option that we had in our compare scenarios and compare years report, where we could show the data in those table options that we had at the very end. We could show the data cumulatively. In the meter detail report, it's going to show it both ways. It's going to show it each month. It's going to show it the months adding up as you go along. After that, it's going to show the total dollars for each month, and it's also going to show the total dollars through the year. So you get the total for the entire year here at the end. It's going to show how long the billing period is. So that'll help you get to that. If you were to use the tuning equation, it would show you what your baseline was. It'll show the number of heating degree days and cooling degree days in that base year. And it'll also show the month rate. And so that's approximately how much you're paying for kilowatt hours in this case. So that was just the reference here. It's going to show all those quantities for the baseline, so how much we would have expected to use in this year after our base year. It's going to show how much we actually used. So these are coming for the bills, and it's going to give it in terms of energy usage, in terms of dollars. It's going to show the bill period length, heating degree days, cooling degree days. And finally, it's going to show a comparison of how the baseline and actual compare. So if we look at this October month, it's taking the actual, subtracting off the baseline, and dividing it by the baseline. Notice that it's saying that our actual usage is 15.9% less than our baseline. So even though it's negative, it's actually a savings that we're seeing. And finally, there are a couple more options here to show our use avoidance. Use avoidance is simply how much less we're using than our prescribed baseline. So it's our baseline up here minus our actual down here. That gives us how much energy we're saving. And the same goes for cost avoidance. It's how much we would have spent had we not implemented these energy retrofits. And yes. And it shows this as a year-to-date and on a monthly breakdown. So you can see how much was saved overall and how much less energy was used overall in each month. So that's one report. The next report that we're going to go over is the compare scenarios with many line items. So for this report, I'm going to still compare scenarios just like I was before. I'm going to run it instead of on the project level, since I'm not giving an overall idea of how this works. I'm just going to run it on the area level. All these options are the same, except for instead of one line item, I'm going to use many line items. I'm going to just give one area. Typically, if you're writing this report, you would use many areas to show the detail for many different areas. I'll run it for Allentown. So we're going to want to see all the energy usage for each month and the equivalent kBTUs. We're going to want to see the total dollar cost. We're going to want to see each energy type cost for the area. And for kicks, we're going to go ahead and see what the weather looked like for that year. I'm going to run the report 2008 to 2009, just like we've been doing previously. Notice here that this chart option is grayed out, and that's because we're using many line items. We're going to have the chart and table on a separate page. And OK. We'll give this report a second to run. OK. And now you can see that you have a lot of data here. It's showing how much we're actually spending in total, how much we're spending on electricity for this one area in total. And it's breaking it down, baseline, actual, savings for electricity dollars, baseline, actual, see the difference, and the savings percentage. And it's doing the same for the electricity usage. Here we're showing the cooling degree days, so what the weather looked like with a balance point of 65 degrees. And we can see the heating degree days also for the balance point of 65 degrees. There's also the charts, which are on the separate page, and we can see it for each line item that we selected. So the total dollars, there's a graph. So each one of these has a graph. Looks very similar to before, except instead of being on this page with our data, it's on a separate page. The next report that we're going to run is the multi-level breakdown report. And we're going to break out usage costs by the multi-level breakdown summary. This report is going to give an overview of the entire project. It's going to show each meter one at a time. So if there's someone who's looking to see how everything adds up, this is a very good report for that. We're going to run it for many sites. I'll go ahead and click the first 4 or 5 sites. And again, this is like the benchmarking report. You can't show multiple months spread out. You're only going to be able to show this last year of data. So it's kind of a good complement to the compare scenarios report. And we'll give it a second to run, and I'll be able to. We have a few more options to click through. We can either run it based on cost or consumption. So you may want to run this report twice, once for cost, once for consumption. You can select which scenarios to compare. I'm going to do what I've been doing previously, the baseline and the actual, so I can see my savings. when you're running this by energy, it'll give you the option how you want to show the energy usage broken up. Usually by meter you have the option to use the energy unit that's given. So if it's electricity, it'll be reported on in kilowatt hours. If it's natural gas, it'll be reported on therms, or for Canadian customers in meters cubed. But on the area level, site level, and project level, usually it'll be in either the equivalent kBTUs or the equivalent kilowatt hours. So I'm going to click OK. Now we can see for those 4 or 5 sites that we selected, each one of those sites is shown here. We see each of the areas is shown here, and then it breaks it down for each fuel type. So we can see electric. If we had more than one electric meter for each one of these sites, you would see a listing. It would be Denver Electric 1, and the next one would be Denver Electric 2. But we only have one of these, so only see one there. It sums it up for each utility type. It also sums it up for the area and site level. We only have one area, so we're only seeing one area in this case. And then it will sum it up on the project level. So we can see our grand total for the savings is 5%. But if we look down, we can see, oh, what happened on this fuel oil meter? Or, ooh, we need to work on this Brunswick gas meter. And so you can really see where you're saving and where you're not seeing savings. So this is a good report to see it and break it down, as the title of the report is. The last report that I'm going to show is to understand the baseline and see how that baseline was arrived at. It's called a meter tuning contract. So what do we want to do? We want to understand or describe the baseline. And we're going to select this meter tuning contract. I'm going to do it for 1 meter. This is kind of like the meter detail report in that it's always going to be on the meter level. But when you select on an area like this, it'll show all the meters that are in that area. If we did it on the site or the entire project, it would do all the meters in the entire project. But we're just going to select that Allentown Electric meter. If you wanted to customize it, you could actually put the company name, the customer's name into it. I'm not going to put those in. So we'll go ahead and let this report run, and we'll take a look at it now. As you can see, these are some screenshots from ReportMaker. We didn't even have to hit print screen to do this. It comes in the report. We can see how the data compares to cooling degree days. So it's the kilowatt hours per day graphed against the cooling degree days per day. We also see the time across. If you have a gas meter, you'll see a lot more of a spike in those winter months. Electricity tends to be a lot more calm. You can see what our tuning period was. It shows all the bills broken out by the dates of the bills, the number of days in each bill, what the reading was, whether or not it was actually included in the tuning. So we can see this one down here was not included in the tuning. It was deselected. You can see the number of heating degree days and cooling degree days. This meter actually had an additional variable that we were looking to tune it to. The offset category here is if you have any modifications that you're doing. If the meter is bill matched, it would show up as an offset here. So that's where any modifications show up. And this is finally the baseline that's calculated based on the tuning equation. The tuning equation can be seen down here for this meter. It also shows the statistical indicators that we have in the metrics screen. and gives a little bit of an explanation of the tuning. It'll say what balance point was used, what that empty checkbox over here means. And so that is the meter tuning contract that is meant to give an explanation of how that baseline was arrived at. So that does it for reporting in ReportMaker. I now have a quick question for you that I want to check your understanding. So if you have a customer that wants to see how their various buildings compare to each other, what report best exemplifies this? So I'll give you a second to think about this. And if you need more time now, I'd go ahead and pause the video and take some more time to look back at ReportMaker and see if you have an answer. Okay. The answer is, for this question, B, the benchmark report. And remember, the benchmark report is the report that will show the graph of the different sites compared to each other. So that's going to show us how various buildings compare to each other. The final topic that we're going to cover today is online reporting. So the web reports feature was just recently added to Metrics. It's only available in the newest version, so you will have to download Metrics 4.4.4 to get this version. When we talk about online reports, I'm going to show you how to upload the reports and how to view the reports from the internet. So if I go into ReportMaker, this new button showed up, Web Reports. It's going to require you to log in. I've actually already logged in here. It's going to use your Energy Toolbox account. Your Energy Toolbox account is on the Abraxas server, on your Abraxas homepage, and you can use the user login. I'll go ahead and log in here real quick. You can see there's an option to view or access online reporting. And I can see this matches up with what's in ReportMaker right now with Steven's projects. In this project level, you can actually have a password if you'd like. Ultimately, we're going to allow you to transfer these reports to customers, so they can have a login account, you can have a login account, you can upload it and then transfer it through the Abraxas webpage to another customer. So if you only want certain customers seeing it, you may put a password in. The web reports are organized on two levels. This is the project level. So if you have multiple customers, maybe each customer would be a project. And then we also have the group level. So maybe if you're looking to show some performance reports, you can organize it that way. You could also, if you have different clients that like to see different reports, you could organize it that way. So each client got their own group. I'm going to go ahead and save the performance reports. I'm going to click this Add Report to upload some of our reports. I'm going to use the Active Report Book. I'm going to select some of the reports to upload. I'm only going to upload the performance reports. So the performance report, that's these first three, the historical data, the baseline and actual total dollars for the project, and the comparison of actual equivalent kBTU per square foot, that benchmarking report that we did. I'm going to upload each report separately. In Excel 2007 and newer, you can upload in a PDF format. So I'm going to go ahead and use that option. That's a pretty slick way of doing it. It's going to be under Performance Reports. I'm going to click Finish. I'll give it a chance. It's converted them to PDFs. Now it's uploading them to the server. So shortly, when I go up onto my server and click refresh on my Energy Toolbox homepage, I'm going to be able to see these files. Alright, looks like they're up there. A quick note, if you're looking to update any reports that you have. If you were to memorize the report or you were to run the report again, you can delete the report and always add it again. So now I'm going to go to my online report database online. I'll select my project. Now I can see I've got this group here, the performance reports, and all the reports that we uploaded under it. So now if I download one of these reports, I have to enter the project level password, which was secret password. And now I can see this is the data from the comparison report that we had. So that's how to use the web reports feature. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. That will conclude our presentation for today. I'm going to go ahead and leave my contact information. If you have any questions for me, feel free to either give me a call or shoot me an email. I'd like to thank you for attending our presentation today, and I hope you've found it useful. You found some new reports that you can run, some new QCs that you can do on your reports in ReportMaker, and some more options that you can use to customize and make your reporting a little bit faster.